are you doing today, John?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. So today we're going to be talking about the film Art and Life, the story of Jim Phillips. And just starting off the bat, what inspired you to bring this story to fruition? It's not that usual to see that many documentaries about artists. Like people that draw. Uh, Especially in the space that Jim is, because I remember his artwork when I was a teenager. So what inspired you to bring his story to the world?
Yeah, I mean, I same situation for me. I grew up skateboarding and just surrounded by Jim's art my whole life, and then in my older years, got the chance to meet him and get to know him, and he was just such a huge influence on me, and he's the reason I wanted to become an artist, and the reason I love skateboarding so much, and but yeah, I just got to know him and became close with him, and um, just felt so inspired by his story and everything he went through and his art, and felt like that should be shared with a lot of people, because I know a lot of people feel very inspired by Jim's artwork as well, and also became artists because of Jim and everything he did. So that was yeah, I was just kind of I was kind of in awe that not a lot more people didn't know who he was, and didn't know of him. His art's everywhere all over the world, and people have seen it whether they know who he is or not. So um, yeah, I just wanted to bring more light to him and his story.
How difficult was it to find um, the footages of like the 60s and the 70s? Because throughout the film, you go, technically speaking, back and forth from past to present, and I know that probably all of this footage is kind of difficult to find. But how was that challenge for you?
Yeah, it was luckily Jim is very good at keeping archives and organizing all his work, and he had a lot of really cool stuff on like old home VHS tapes and things like that. Um, and then yeah, it was a challenge. I mean, we had to reach out to a lot of different people for their archives
Okay.
and put things together. So um, once we had the story together, it was just finding those visuals and those shots to tell that visual story. And so yeah, it took a long time to search and find those images that would fit well. But I mean, I think it all worked out and came together. There's yeah, it's tough to pull footage from that long ago.
No, yeah, and that's why I asked, because sometimes some of these videos sometimes by luck you can find them digital, because whoever was inspired, like, oh yeah, I have from this year to this year, I have all this archival footage, but it's digital. But sometimes it's not digital, and you have to find like VHS or reels, and I imagine that it's really difficult to get that to digital, right? And how long did it take to make this documentary? Uh, I mostly ask this because some documentaries, they take a short time, probably maybe a year or two. Some take much longer, 6 years or more. How long did it take in this particular documentary uh, to have it
Yeah,
in a whole?
we started in 2011, so it took over 12 years from when we started production to finishing it. And there's many reasons for that. Jim had some like health challenges throughout, we had some production challenges throughout, money challenges. Um, and then, like you said already, just getting all of Jim's work and all the footage was, you know, analog. So it was like digitizing everything, scanning everything into high res, getting old tapes and 16 millimeter footage and transferring it into 4K. And so that there was years spent in digitizing Jim's art, which he has a massive volume of artwork. So, and then we animated a lot of his artwork as well. So that took a lot of time as well. So yeah, it was an immense project, and then the challenge of just trying to cut that into 90 minutes is was a big task too. I was like, um, telling somebody's whole life story in 90 minutes isn't easy.
No, I can imagine. And how was that process of animating his artwork? Because Jim's artwork is very, I would say that it's all over the place. How was the process to, or yeah, how was the process to animate his artwork? Especially one of the artworks that you guys highlight is the Last Supper with all of the different characters surrounding Jesus and doing certain things that we can't mention in the video. But how was that process on animating his artwork?
Yeah, it was super fun. I mean, I think Jim's art's kind of set up for that process because it's so like clean lines and easy to like cut things out, and then make a move. But it's kind of a tedious process because you have to go frame by frame. But it was a lot of fun, like just directing, hey, let's have this character do this and that one's doing this. Like you said in the Last Supper painting, is like just kind of directing like what everyone's doing in it. We did that with every single piece of his art. Like, so just the creative process behind that was a lot of fun.
While you were filming Jim in his studio, were there any particular moment that probably was not in film that just caught your eye and you would have wished that people would have been able to see it?
Um, I mean, yeah, there was like, I can't really think anything in particular, but I mean, we definitely had like a lot of conversations. He's just like a really good storyteller. So he would start telling the story like off camera. And a lot of times I'd be like, oh man, I wish I could sit him down and hear that again. And a few times we would, yeah, there was some moments where we were at dinner and he was telling us the story how he dodged the draft and for the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And so he had this crazy story how he basically like pretended like he was crazy so that they wouldn't send him off to war, because he's just like a surfer from California and an artist. So he told this story like during dinner, and then we brought him back in and had him tell the same story like on camera. So just instances like that, like he's a really good storyteller and gives you like a good visual on what he's saying. So
That's amazing. And how did you feel being the fact that because I imagine myself if I were like next to you while filming, right? How did you feel when you started seeing like his original work in person? And not only his work in person, I think that one of the things that caught my eye very deeply was his wall of like surfer magazines that he has all of them, and he has like to us all of them have like artwork of his, and he has them all like very very carefully treated, like if they were like comic books. But how did you feel when you got to see like his artwork in person, and as well see him draw and paint in person?
Yeah, I mean, you feel like a kid in a candy store, you know, it's like his collection and the way he archives all his art and um yeah, it's so cool. Like you've seen all these images, you know, and then all of a sudden you're standing there with like the original like Roscop or the original Rip Grip, like things that, you know, you're just like, wow, like yeah, it's pretty astonishing. And then his whole like he just has a story behind every little thing he has like hanging on his wall and in his garage, and just a lot of cool nostalgic moments and stories. It's yeah, it's pretty special for sure.
And there is a portion of like of the documentary that he talks about making posters for bands. You do have an interview with Neil Young. Were would have you did you try to get like other like probably musicians or band members to interview for the documentary, like that they can like give their probably expressions on how they were influenced or how they liked Jim's work, being the fact that he has so many posters out there, not out there, but in his, like, I would say, artist binder.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, he worked with so many big name musicians, and it was a challenge to get Neil Young. So like that took over a year to lock in that interview. Um, so I mean, you know, a lot of the other musicians he did posters for are not alive anymore, and or they're impossible to get a hold of. So um, that Neil Young was kind of the only one we nailed down, but that was like a lot of effort.
Okay.
Uh, and yeah, so I mean, I think he was a good single person to kind of speak on behalf of the musician world, you know, and how it was working with Jim in those days in the 70s. So it was a really cool time, and you kind of get that feeling from Neil and how it, you know, how great Jim's art was back then, and kind of how it's, you know, set itself apart from all the other poster artists out there.
Amazing. And were there any other moments besides the moment that you mentioned of like going back? He mentioned the story of being drafted for Vietnam, that you guys went back and recorded that for the documentary. But was there any other moment throughout the filming process or while editing that you till this day always go back to and remember?
Um, that's not in the movie, or
Oh no, in general, like if it's in the
any
movie,
moment.
if it's in the movie or not, it's just a moment that you felt like, yeah, I'm gonna keep this, and any moment that I'm like thinking, I'll go back to that memory and just enjoy it once again.
Um, I think like the first time I met Jim, I mean, he was just like so I was just blown away, like how kind of she was just a humble, normal person. And I reached out to him to do um, some art, to like graphic design work. And you know, this was close to 20 years ago. But yeah, he was just such a down to earth, cool guy, and we were just like talking about surfing and skateboarding and art the whole time, for a while. And so yeah, just kind of that moment, I guess, and just that like you finally get to meet your hero, and like that person is actually like an awesome person that you a lot of times you meet your hero and they don't turn out to be so cool, it can be disappointing. So yeah, I guess just like, wow, like I met my hero and he's like more than what I expected, just a really cool guy. So that's kind of what I think about, I guess.
Being the fact that you are such a fan of Jim, by any chance, do you still own a skateboard or an artwork that you had when you were a teenager?
No, unfortunately, like those things I got, they weren't as value. Like to me back then, I was like, oh, this probably isn't worth much, and a lot of the stuff my mom would just get rid of, like not even telling me. So, um, but yeah, I wish. I mean, I had one of my first skateboard was like an old Corey O'Brien, the Reaper, like throwing the fireball. And
Okay.
yeah, I always think about that. I'm like, man, if I still had that skateboard. But I have a lot of his reissue boards.
Okay.
I have a little collection going, so it's nice. I still have a bunch of Jim's art all around the house.
And what would be your opinion in the case that now Santa Cruz is like collaborating with different of like brands? Recently there I think that they're, for at least my knowledge, the latest collaboration was with Yu-Gi-Oh. What is your take in regards of they collaborating now with like famous, like probably anime or cartoons?
I think it's great. I think it's cool. Skateboarding is like it's like a perfect canvas for art, because it's out in the world and kids are cruising around and everyone sees it. And um, yeah, I think the collaborations are awesome. It's a way to spread the art and the visuals and get it out there. And skateboarding is perfect for that. And that's what Jim was so good at, and that's what Santa Cruz realized, back in the '80s, with Jim's art. So I mean, they've figured out the formula, and they're Jim's art is still licensed and all over the world through Santa Cruz. So they're yeah, I think it's amazing.
Now, were there, you mentioned that there was like for instance, like an example, getting Neil Young um like for the interview was a challenge. The archival footage was another challenge due to the digitizing the footage. But were there any other like challenges throughout filming this documentary?
Yeah, I think just with the amount of footage we had and Jim's volume of art, um, it was a lot to go through. And our first rough cut was like 5 hours long, so it was a challenge to just kind of pack everything into 90 minutes, um, and still tell the story in the way that we wanted to, and does Jim justice. And so yeah, that was a big challenge. I think we did a great job with it, considering just how much there was to work with. And it's tough to cut things out that you're like, you really like that story and want to keep it in there, but you got to make a decision. So yeah, that was a tricky one.
And John, what would be a piece of advice that you would provide to any future filmmaker that is in the either they're in the works or that they are right now probably taking a chance on a project, on a personal project of theirs?
Just keep going, you know. I mean, like if you're find a subject you're really care about and is fun to you, and yeah, just keep going, and there's going to be hurdles and things thrown at you, and just figure it out. Keep going and see it to the finish.
Great. And my next question would be, what is the next thing for John, the filmmaker? What's your next project, or what is something that you are eyeing to be able to do as your next project?
Um, I'm kind of still, I mean, right now I'm just focusing on the distribution side of this project. Um, so I want to, make sure this gets out there into the world, and everyone sees it, and enjoys this film. But for the next project, I mean, there's a few things that are kind of been floating my way. I'm not really sure exactly yet what that is. Just kind of open and waiting to see what what feels right, and what that's going to be.
Okay. And if you if you could have been able to add something, because you mentioned there was the raw cut was 5 hours. What is something of those 5 hours that you would have liked for people to see in the documentary?
Um, I think, I mean, there's just a bunch of stories Jim had that were really fun to listen to, and we did some we animated them to help like show the visual of that. Um, and we might do like when the DVD comes out, we might do some DVD extras and
Okay.
share those. But yeah, he had some good stories about meeting like some of his childhood friends on the beach while they were surfing, and kind of having like locals fighting over like their spot, like their
Yeah.
surfing spot, and then he had like another story about dodging the draft, and then just like driving cross country with marijuana and getting like pulled over by the cops, and things like that. So that he just had all these great stories. So um yeah, we'll probably share them in some DVD extras, and because they're pretty cool.
That's amazing. And John, this would be my final question for you today. If you could describe your film in one word, what would it be?
um Inspiration, I guess.
Inspiration. Yes. Great, amazing word. John, thank you very much for giving us the time to talk about your film. I hope everybody enjoys it as well as I did. And I hope I see you once again here talking about another of your films.
Thanks, John.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
thank you. Bye bye.